Hello, I'm Cameron Kars. I'm a partner solutions architect with Microsoft, and today I'm going to be going over Power BI Copilot, a quick high-level overview, and then a demo. So if we look at our agenda, the first thing we're going to look at is the requirements for setting up Power BI Copilot. We'll have a high-level overview of its capabilities. We'll look at what items are integrated with Copilot currently, and then we'll have a short demo. So the requirements, what do you need to set up Power BI Copilot and, incidentally, Fabric Copilot? So the first thing you need is some sort of premium capacity. So whether that's a Fabric capacity, an F2 or higher, or any of the Power BI premium capacities, P1, P2, etc. Then you just need to make sure your capacity administrator has enabled Copilot features, either for your entire organization, specific security groups, or you individually. So what are the capabilities of Power BI Copilot? Well, the capabilities of all the copilots kind of fall into two categories. We have insights and analysis, and then we also have development. So under insights and analysis, we can create summaries, answer questions about our data, and generate insights. So when we're creating summaries, this might be opening up a Power BI report or an app or a dashboard or something that we haven't seen before, and maybe we want to get a summary of what the data is inside here. Is this the right report that's going to have the information that I'm looking for? Those kinds of things. You can also just ask questions about the data. If there's no chart or graph or visual displaying what you need to know, you can just chat with the data and try and get an answer that way. You can also generate insights. You can ask Copilot, hey, what do you think is the most important metrics here? What's making a difference? And Copilot can take the data and make an inference on what it thinks is happening there. On the development side for Power BI, there is natural language of code that applies a little more to the Fabric side of things, but we can explain and fix error messages. And in the case of Power BI reports, we can also create entire reports from scratch with just a prompt. So as of September 2nd, 2025, Copilot is integrated into these items. So for Fabric, it's Data Flows Gen 2, Data Pipeline, Notebooks, Data Warehouse, SQL Database, KQL Query Set, and Real-Time Dashboard. For Power BI, we have the standalone Copilot experience that exists inside Fabric. Then we have Copilot for how it exists for report viewers. Then we have how it exists for report editors, and then also Power BI Mobile. For the demo today, we're just going to be looking at the Power BI side of things. So we'll be looking at the standalone Copilot experience, how report viewers interact with it, how report editors interact with Copilot. So without further ado, let's flip over to the demo. All right. So I have my Fabric workspace open here, and you can see I've got a section here just for this regional sales sample report, and I've got several different versions of it. So what this report is it's sales opportunities won, lost over a period of time across different industries and things. Maybe it's a report I'm not super familiar with, and this is one I kind of grabbed online that someone was using. I was not familiar with it. I used Copilot to get more familiar with it. So let's go ahead and open this up. And let's start by looking at how a report viewer, someone viewing the report, whether that's embedded in a Power BI app or just in a page like this, how they would interact with Copilot. So you can see here, I land on this report page here, and I can open up the Copilot button. And Copilot, to start, will always kind of give you, hey, these are the things that I'm capable of doing. And for the Power BI experience, it's quite lengthy. But if ever those summaries are not present, I can ask Copilot what it can do. So I might ask a prompt like this that I've copied over, say, what functions can you perform? Give me a summary of what you can do. And so Copilot will give me a summary, says, hey, I can answer questions, summarize content, provide an overview of the semantic model. I can analyze trends, calculate metrics, etc. A lot of the same stuff that you're seeing in these kind of pre-canned things. If you want to understand the data, if you want to dig deeper, write a summary, etc. So let's start like interacting with our data here. So let's ask a question about the data. Maybe I don't want to poke around this report and try and figure out, okay, which industry had the most revenue won in June of 2020? Maybe that information's in here in the report, but it's not jumping out at me. And that's really what I came to this report to find out, maybe. So I'll ask this question. So you can see here that in June 2020, the industry with the most revenue won was business services, with 669,000 revenue won. So I actually come over here to this industries overview, and I roll this back to of June of 2020. You can see that indeed business services has the highest revenue one. Again, I didn't have to navigate to this. It already pulled up the information based on what was inside there. And if I open up this little citation here, it'll tell me like, hey, here's the visual that I got this data from, and you can jump to that immediately. So that's really great. Let me go back to the main page here. So again, maybe I want to understand what this report is. Maybe someone sent this to me and they've asked me, hey, can you look at this and tell me what you think? Maybe I've never seen this report before. So I can ask questions to Copilot. What is this report page about? Give me a concise summary of the content, right? And so you can see here, it's saying, hey, this sales overview page is a comprehensive snapshot of sales performance, focusing on revenue won, pipeline status, and forecast attainment. And for each of these things that it gives me citations for these things. So hey, this is where this number's coming from. This where this number's coming from. It's saying, hey, there's a geographical analysis happening here, etc., which is really great for someone who's coming in the report, maybe hasn't seen it before, or just wants to get an idea of what this page is doing. I can also ask for, instead of just summaries of what's actually happening in the data, I can get kind of insights inside of this. So I can ask Copilot very broadly, identify the top insights or unusual events and show them in a bulleted list. Use one short sentence for each item. So let's see if Copilot can come up with some interesting, insights to look at inside this data set. Something maybe leadership might be interested in, those sorts of things. So accessories had the highest revenue one at 9 million, which was 15% higher than warranties, the lowest among the product categories. And so US South had led all the regions, which is great. Revenue one and revenue in pipeline were most divergent for accessories with revenue one. So for instance, our accessories division, our revenue one and what's in the pipeline has a great disparity. And so that's actually a surprising insight that I may not have known from these visuals or been able to gather right off the bat. So it's kind of cool Copilot was able to do that for me. And so kind of following up to that, I can ask another kind of insightful question here. Like, is there anything critical I should follow up on this report? Keep your response concise. So again, it's telling me, there's strong overall performance, but it's also saying, however, accessories had a notably higher revenue one than pipeline, which may indicate a need to replenish pipeline opportunities for sustained growth. That's awesome. That's great insight that Copilot's given me based on the data. And then if I need to make that business case to leadership or someone, I not only have, Copilot's telling me about this, I can say, hey, and here's the report, and here's the data, and here's where we're seeing this from these citations, which is awesome. So I can also have a summarization of this report. So I can say, hey, give me an executive summary, not just of this report page, but of the entire report as a whole. And so if I've opened up this report and I'm saying, hey, I maybe want to spend some time in here, is this going to have the information that I need, right? And so the summary that it's telling me here is, hey, total revenue is 26 million. It's giving me some of the high level statistics that are happening inside this report. Again, pointing out that pipeline health is strong, but accessories is has a little bit higher revenue one than what's in the pipeline. I can also ask it specifically to summarize just specific visuals. So for instance, if I wanted to say, hey, can you summarize this visual here? Because, it looks like, obviously, Washington is a little darker than these others, but, California, Texas, Florida, they're all pretty similar. Maybe summarize that for me. What am I looking at here in this visual specifically? So it tells me here that, obviously Washington was the highest. We kind of saw that in the visual, followed by Texas, then California, which is interesting because, these kind of look pretty similar to me in terms of their, the color grading. But it's nice to be able to ask Copilot this explicit question and kind of get specific answers. And you can see our lower performing states are, Vermont, Mississippi. In addition to summarizing report pages, visuals, we can ask it to actually summarize the underlying semantic model. So if I was like, hey, this report seems pretty good, maybe I want to build my own report off of this. Does it have the data underneath that I'm looking for? And so again, this semantic model supports, organizes information about sales opportunities, accounts, products, territories, related activities. So I could take that and say, oh, this is pretty great. This is what I want to do. Maybe I'll make a report off of that, those sorts of things. So this is how a report viewer would kind of interact with Copilot, whether that's embedded in a Power BI app or just on a report page like this, right? So let's switch over to how a report editor would use this to develop content and do some other cool things. So I will go to edit here. And just like in the other things, I can open up Copilot in the report pane here. And so what I can actually do is I could say, I've made this report. I'm pretty happy with it, but I think we can do more. I would like Copilot to suggest content for a new report page for me. And so what it'll do is gives me 4 kind of options right here off the bat, pipeline performance. Let's look at, metrics and trends, maybe a revenue analysis, a sales stage progression, or owner performance. So maybe this is something that interests me, owner performance, comparing sales performance by the owner and the manager of those groups. So maybe some managers are doing better than others. Their teams are a little more cohesive, working together. That could be something interesting that I hadn't thought to do in my report here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just click create here, and Copilot will run off and make a new page that pulls in all these that information here. And so you can see here, actually, this gives me a card here, the total revenue 1, and then splits it out, by owner here. So you can see Riley Johnson is doing really great. Looks like he's got Peyton Davis under him as manager. He's doing a lot better than everyone else here. And then by manager, they all seem, relatively close, but, Amelia Garner is, doing the best here as well. And so kind of a great thing to do automatic report creation, whether it's just to get an idea, to stimulate some ideas for what you'd want to have on the report page, or to make something that you're going to be using in production. But let's flip back over to the sales overview page here, because another great thing that you can do is I'll delete this visual here, and I'm going to add the narrative visual here. And so what the narrative visual is it's a Copilot prompt inside the visuals itself. So I can actually create a prompt here. So I can say, summarize this report page. Be very brief. So I will update this. And so what happens here actually is we get a Copilot is going to scan the page. It's going to summarize it being very concise. It's going to have those same sort of citations and everything. But the great part about this is, as the data changes, this narrative visual will change as well. And so what's really cool about this is, in the past, if we wanted to have a visual on the page, it was like, hey, let's describe what's happening in this report, how to use it. That would typically have to be a text box, something that's hard coded. If you needed numbers or specific information in there that was changing, hard to do. Now we can have Copilot kind of generate a prompt for us that will change as our data changes. So if I had a prompt that said, hey, give me my top 3 action items based on the data in terms of the analysis, that can change as the data changes, which is really cool. So what I've just shown you here in terms of creating the report pages, creating the narrative visual, this can be done in the web and on desktop. Now we're going to flip over to Power BI Desktop, and I'll show you a few of the Copilot features that can only be done inside Power BI Desktop. So let's open up this same regional sales report here in Power BI Desktop. So all you have to do to use Copilot in Power BI Desktop is make sure you're signed in to your user credentials, and that you have access to that Copilot, or that you have access to that Fabric capacity that has access to Copilot. So for instance, I'm connected to the same capacity that I'm connected to here that's running this report is now connected to my Power BI desktop. And so I'm able to use Copilot here. So everything you can do in the web that I just showed you, you can also do here. So let me show you some of the stuff that you can only do in Power BI desktop versus the web. So the first thing you can do is this DAX query editor here. And so I can actually have Copilot come in here and I can ask it to write me a specific DAX query, or I can do something even a little more broader. I can say, hey, suggest some measures for me. And so what Copilot will do is it'll come up with a prompt. It says, based on my data, suggest you measures in a DAX query. And you can see here that that this is the comment it gives us. It makes sure to include the prompt that I have for it here. And so it gives me a bunch of new measures that I might want to add to my model here. And so I'm going to say, yeah, these all look pretty good. I'm going to keep this. And I can run it here, and then you can see I get my my measures and information kind of run here. So a great way to kind of come up with new ideas. If there's a specific DAX query you're looking to do, Copilot can help you write it. You can tell it, hey, I need a DAX query that does X, Y, and Z. Copilot will help you write that. The other thing that you can do with Copilot and Power BI Desktop is you can add descriptions for semantic model measures. So what's really great about these things is that a lot of times, unfortunately, our models are not always up to date, the cleanest. We're not always documenting our code as well as we should. That's okay now, because, for instance, I've got a metric here that is, for instance, I could say, hey, this FSST ADG slicer alt text, what's going on here? This is kind of interesting. Or maybe this, opportunity count and pipeline, whatever it is, right? If there's some measure with a vague name, what I can do is I can actually have Copilot look at it and create a appropriate description for it. And so Copilot will review the measure, and now I know opportunity count and pipeline is counts the number of opportunities in pipeline that have a status equal to a specified string literal. This measure helps track the volume of opportunities at a particular stage based on their status. So that's great. And it's actually good to know, maybe I didn't know about the specific string literal that was happening here in the measure, and that could have thrown me off during development later down the road. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to keep that. And so now I'll have this description added for that measure. So now anybody who comes after me will have that description that they can use. Copilot will even have that description that it can use to help it generate insights analysis moving forward, which is really great. So that's Power BI Desktop. Let me flip back over to the web interface here. And so I will not save those changes. And let's talk about the standalone Copilot for a second. So the standalone Copilot inside of Fabric is kind of Copilot that exists on your whole Fabric tenant, right? So I can ask it questions like, hey, I want to find reports about specific topics, different things like that. So let me copy this prompt here. So I could say, hey, I want to find reports that will show me lost opportunities, right? And if there's lots of Fabric capacities, lots of reports, lots of different things, that's not always going to be evident, right? So for instance, the report that I'm hoping will show up here is this regional sales sample, right? It shows me lost opportunities inside the report. Copilot is doing more than just a keyword search here. It's actually examining the contents of the report itself to find if these reports are going to give me what I need. So for instance, if I click this prompt, it's going to say, hey, it's a demo environment, so they're kind of all be the same. But it's saying, hey, I've got this regional sales sample, this pre-post AI ones. There's other ones that are inside different apps. These are the ones that I think is going to match based on what you were asking me for here. So it's a great way to search for things inside your organization. It's secure to you. You're not going to like see items you don't have access to. And it's really great because, like I said, it's doing more than just that simple keyword search. So one of the things you can actually do is you can actually attach a specific report, specific semantic model, data agent to it, and ask questions specifically about that. Now, watch what happens when I, for instance, select a semantic model here. So I'll do this regional sales sample. And so I might ask something like, let me copy this prompt. What opportunities by industry, made the most money? And so it's going to think on it because it's connected to that report now and it's thinking. So now what it tells me here is interesting. So it says, hey, this answer was generated from data that was not fully prepped for AI. So review carefully because accuracy, can vary. So I might say, I feel still confident about this. That's fine. I'm going to view the answer anyways, right? And so what I get is, based on this, it's telling me, hey, the highest revenue opportunities were the NA category. Maybe that's not super helpful. Maybe I didn't quite want to see that. So maybe Copilot it's right here, but maybe it's not quite right in the way I would like it to be. So one of the things that we can do now for this is we can do this prepping for AI. So if we flip back to Power BI Desktop, I will show you that we have a new thing under Copilot called Prep Data for AI. And so what this is it consists of 5 main points that we want to do to make sure our data is prepped so that Copilot and other users can interact with it as efficiently as possible. And the first 3 are going to happen in this Prep Data for AI spot here. First, we're going to simplify the data schema, generate verified answers, and add any AI instructions. The other things that you can do is make sure you have a very good, clean, efficient data model, and that you have descriptions on all of your measures, which we already showed you how to do in Copilot. So for instance, when we're prepping data for AI, I might want to simplify the data schema, right? Like I don't necessarily need to have these, campaign sequence numbers in there. So, by default, all these columns that I have hidden, it's not including. And so if there's something I wanted to come in here and say, hey, we don't need to know all the contacts for this report. That's kind of an inconsequential table. Maybe I don't need the whole table, right? I can specify what actually Copilot will be searching on when it looks at this data. The second thing you can do is this verified answers. I was like, yep. And so how you do verified answers is that if you have a question that you want generally people to always get a specific answer back for, you can attach that to a visual or something, right? So for instance, I might say, hey, revenue 1 and revenue in pipeline. This is a really great, concise visual that I think people are going to want a lot. And so I want this to be kind of a verified answer. So I can click on the ellipses here. I can say set up a new verified answer. And so you can see, phrases connected to the verified answer. And so it doesn't give me some suggestions. So when someone asks, what is the revenue won by each product line? I want it to bring up this visual and give them the answer. How much revenue is currently in the pipeline for each product line? I want it to bring up this visual. Same with this one here. And so then I can apply those changes, and now I have a verified answer. Anybody asks about revenue won each product line, this visual, and the answer will return. It's a verified answer. The other thing I can do is I can add AI instructions. If you're familiar with ChatGPT or anything like that, you can add instructions to give the AI either flavor or give it explicit instructions about certain data things. So for instance, I could say, for example, if asked whether something is on target, that's total sales for the current month. That's the jargon in our organization that we're talking about. We're not talking about opportunities. We're talking about sales for the current month when we talk about being on target for something. And so, I would, apply these changes here. I would make sure. So these are the 3 things, the first 3 things you do for prepping data for AI. The 4th and 5th one are having a very clean data model and having descriptions on all of your measures. So once I've done all those things, I would, just publish this report up to the Power BI service. And so I'll come back here. And so you can see here, if I attach a report that post AI prep, one that has already been through the AI prep process, And now I ask it that opportunity question that we had before. So what opportunity by industry made the most money? Now it's been prepped for AI. It's going to be able to give me a more accurate answer and not give me that little warning, information, right? So let's see what Copilot returns for us. And so this is actually pretty cool. It's given me this sort of play graph here, and I can see as we're moving through October, December, I can see the different industries that are jumping, going back and forth, what the revenue one is, and you can see that obviously major pharmaceuticals, life insurance, real estate are my big players, which is what we saw up here, right? But we're no longer getting that in A. It's not applicable. We've prepped the data for AI. We've kind of scrubbed those things clean, which is really great. So let's do another example of the post AI prep one, and let's ask it something. If I just ask it really just quick question, and I just say, hey, product line revenue, this should generate our verified answer that we dedicated, because we're asking about product line revenue. And so it's saying, hey, this matches a verified answer. What is the revenue won by each product line? You can see I didn't have to type out that exact statement or anything. Copilot was smart enough to infer that this is what I meant, and this is the answer that I'm getting. You can see here when you can break down how Copilot actually arrived at this this statement here. So yeah, that about covers it. We've covered the standalone Copilot experience here. We covered how report viewers interact with Power BI, and we covered how report editors interact with Power BI, whether that's in the web or in Power BI desktop. So thank you very much for sticking around, watching the demo, and I will see you next time.